Hello, everybody, and welcome to my recap of the 2024 Chicago Bears season. This is the first time I'm doing something like this on this channel. It's the fifth year I've been reacting to every single Bears game, but this season had a lot of significant moments, and I feel like this season, more than any other that I've covered, deserves a full recap. I feel like Bears fans are not going to forget this season anytime soon, whether that be for the better or for the worse. We'll have to see how the next handful of years play out to see how we look back on this season in a more positive light or not. But obviously, one of the biggest disappointments in Bears history with the amount of talent on the roster, the team lacked in one massive category: coaching. And I think this season, more than any other in my time being a Bears fan, has it been shown to me just how important coaching is in the NFL. I mean, there are several moments throughout this season where games were won or lost by coaches' decisions in crunch time, in the final 2 minutes of the game. We'll deep dive into some of those moments as we progress. But I want to start kind of from the end of the 2023 season and how we kind of got to where we are right now. I am recording this about 3-4 days after the Bears officially hired Ben Johnson to be their next head coach. So that's where we'll kind of wrap this video up. The first mistake going into this season. The 2023 season ends with the Bears losing on the road in Lambeau. It's the Packers' 10th straight win against the Bears. It is the Packers clinching a playoff berth in which they would end up going on and defeating the Dallas Cowboys the next week as the 7th seed, becoming the first 7th seed to win a playoff game. Around the time the Packers are doing this, the Bears had made it abundantly clear that they were retaining Matt Eberflus as their head coach. First problem. That was where all drama begun. They kept Matt Eberflus, and it was super puzzling at that moment. But as the offseason kept going, they drafted Caleb Williams, they drafted Rome Odunze, they picked up DeAndre Swift and a couple other pieces. They picked up Kevin Byard. There's a couple of moves, a couple other things that happened in the offseason, relatively quiet couple months. Then they get announced to be on Hard Knocks. And Matt Eberflus has this new haircut. He's got a beard, and he doesn't look as... He has a little bit more what the young kids say aura than he did before, which is absolutely true. I will fully stand behind the hype that I had. That man, the way that he changed his look, he looked so much better, in my opinion. It's actually hilarious looking back on it, how much a haircut really duped this entire fan base into thinking that things were changing. I think it's the funniest thing ever. So anyways, training camp rolls around. Hard Knocks is there. You get that whole thing that comes out about George McCaskey not wanting swear words in Hard Knocks this year. He doesn't like it and everything. Do with that information and have your own opinions on that as you will. Hard Knocks was great. That was so fun to go through training camp and watch Hard Knocks before each Bears game and then watch the preseason. Get to look at the rookie quarterback. Get to look at these types of things. Preseason was great. They finished a perfect 4-0 after winning the Hall of Fame game, after it did get canceled in the third quarter, but they did win that game because they were winning by the time that game got canceled. They go 4-0 in the preseason, which doesn't always mean success. I mean, the two 0-16 teams in NFL history, the 2008 Detroit Lions and the 2016 Cleveland Browns, both went 4-0 in the preseason. So anyone who thought that was going to be a premonition on the rest of the season, you're sorely mistaken. But then we're actually going to get into the games. Game 1 rolls around, and the Bears are playing the Tennessee Titans at home. So here we are. We're finally in September. Brand new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. Brand new quarterback. New receivers. They get Keenan Allen in the mix. I forgot to mention that a little earlier. And you got this new look offense that basically retained DJ Moore, and that was it. You have a whole new look offense. That defense riding high after the strong end of the 2023 campaign, going into the 2024 season, and they lay an egg in the first half. Oh my gosh, they looked awful in that first half. They let Will Levis march into Soldier Field and jump out to a 17-0 lead on the Chicago Bears. Or maybe it was 17-3. Regardless, no, it was 17-0. They had a 3-score lead at halftime. And I'm like, okay, it's the rookie's first start. Number 1 overall quarterback has not won in their first career start since 2002. You know, it's a easy opponent to start with, but, you know, who knows? We'll see what they do when they come out of the break. And what do they do when they come out of the break? They play hard. The offense still struggles, but they put together a field goal drive, and then the defense takes over, forcing 3 critical takeaways in the second half. And it single-handedly gets the Bears not only back in the game, but gives them the lead. I mean, the Bears had struggled a little bit offensively. They couldn't move the football. They scored a special teams touchdown on a punt block. They scored a pick 6 after one of the most baffling pick 6 plays I've ever seen in my entire life, with Will Levis just trying to make something out of nothing when instead it's a catastrophic meltdown as it's returned for a touchdown by Tyreek Stevenson. And then the Bears are able to convert on a 2-point conversion, which was the only points in that game that the Bears offense contributed. They contributed 2 points to the 24 that the Bears scored, not including special teams points from Cairo Santos, because that's special teams. So the offense directly contributed 2 out of 24 points in this season opener, and they won the football game. Something that the team had not been able to do a lot with Justin Fields when the offense has struggled. So it felt like, you know what, Caleb, this is what we wanted, or at least this is what I was thinking going into the season. You know, they get a bit of an easier schedule. If Caleb Williams struggles in a couple games, but the defense can play well, they maybe can bail him out in a game or two. So that one he finally, kind of understands some things and is able to kind of get some solid play under his feet. We hit the hard part of the schedule and we can be competing. And that's exactly what that game was. It was an incredibly ugly win, but it was a win nonetheless, and it was a crazy finish as well with that pick 6. And then Jalen Johnson sealing the deal at the end. So you get week 1. Great opener. Lots of stuff to work on, obviously. But you are happy because you're 1-0. Then we move forward, and pretty much things started to head a downward spiral here. The Bears go in basically a lose-lose situation here. Week 2 on the road in Houston on Sunday Night Football. Caleb Williams' first road start. First time the Houston Texans played home with their new rebrand, and the Bears are wearing their orange alternates. A really forgettable game, let's be honest. Going back, if there's going to be one game that I will not remember very much from last season, it is this one. Mainly because this is an early season game. It was close. Didn't feel like either team really could stretch away, but it wasn't a super memorable game. The biggest takeaway was that Caleb Williams made some mistakes, some rookie mistakes, threw 2 picks, got sacked like 7 times, a preview of what was to come from the offensive line. And the main takeaway from this was that the offensive line was playing terrible and Caleb Williams couldn't get himself out of sacks. And he was running for his life all day and threw a couple bad interceptions. The thing is, the Texans couldn't put away the Bears. They had a chance, down 1 score late, and they just couldn't convert. But, this was a game that they were projected to lose at the beginning of the season. It was the one game in the front half of this schedule that mostly everyone was like, yeah, that's probably a loss. So you go from a game that you're projected to lose, and you lose, but you keep it somewhat close, to Indianapolis. So Caleb Williams starts his rookie season against 3 out-of-conference teams in the AFC, and he goes on the road to Indianapolis. Still hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. By the way, no one in the league up to this point had thrown a touchdown pass. So Caleb Williams goes out to Indianapolis after throwing 2 picks the week prior. He looks good, somewhat, right? He threw another 2 picks in the game, but threw for over 350 yards and threw for 2 touchdowns, his first 2 career touchdowns, the first of which was to fellow rookie Rome Odunze. So while he was able to sling the football, the offense was ineffective once they crossed midfield. They could get across midfield, but once they crossed midfield, they could not do anything until the 4th quarter. Of course, this game highlighted by the 4th and goal speed option play, whatever you want to call it, from the 1-yard line that loses 10 yards near the end of the first half in a very ugly football game. Colts end up winning this one. And the big takeaway through the first 3 weeks is Shane Waldron is a bad play caller. We're seeing some really baffling things out of this offense, play calling wise and scheme wise, and it makes things really difficult. And that's where you sit at the end of 3 weeks, 1-2, which isn't insurmountable, but not the start you were hoping for, especially given the fact that you had a really good chance to win this game in Indianapolis. We then jump back to Soldier Field, Caleb Williams' first game against a conference opponent, and the LA Rams against Matt Stafford, one of the guys Caleb said he looked up to as a kid. And the Bears find a way with an injured Rams squad that's missing Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. They find a way to get it done. Jaquan Brisker picks off Matt Stafford late. Caleb Williams throws his first touchdown pass in Soldier Field to DJ Moore on a beautiful throw. And it was just a game it was another kind of forgettable game, but the Bears ended up winning this one. So in a season like they had, you kind of remember this one a little bit. But this one, of course, important later in the season because the Vikings would lose about a month later on the road in SoFi Stadium, which was one of 3 losses they had all season. And not only that, the Rams would end up beating the Vikings again in the playoffs. So this is the one playoff team the Bears beat this season. Now, granted, were they injured? Yes. But does that completely take away the fact that they'd still beat this team? They totally did. And it was probably, looking back, the best win that the team had on the year. But the big thing is the progression for Caleb Williams. He's looked better in these last 2 games, starting to throw some touchdown passes. Then you get to the 2 games this season that really made you believe. And the unfortunate thing is that these 2 games came in week 5 and 6, so they really made you believe. The Bears were 2-2 at this point. They get the Carolina Panthers. There we go. We're going to point that right there. They get the Carolina Panthers at home, and they just walk all over them, starting Andy Dalton after Bryce Young got benched after week 2. Proved to be the right decision as Bryce Young came back and played significantly better. He played just a little bit at the end of this game, but couldn't do much for that offense. But regardless, Caleb Williams threw for 300 yards again for the second time in his first 5 games as a Bears quarterback. And he threw for another 2 touchdown passes, both to DJ Moore. And the team just looked really, really good. They looked really good throughout the entirety of the game. And it was a dominating performance from start to finish, which carried over into their next game across the pond in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kept it going. This was Caleb Williams' best performance individually of the season. 4 touchdown passes, 2 of them to Cole Kmet, 2 of them to Keenan Allen, his first 2 in a Bears uniform. And it was, the Bears controlled this game from the start. And one of the common themes throughout the entire season was the Bears got off to really slow starts, and that was something that plagued them even in these games that they won. These 2 games against Carolina and Jacksonville, they were losing. They did not score the first points of the football game. The Panthers scored a touchdown before the Bears scored 8 points, but they did put up another. The Panthers didn't find an end zone for the rest of the game. The Jaguars were held to a field goal on their opening drive, and so, despite going down a little early, the Bears were able to beat up on some teams that they were expected to beat, especially since the Jags were 1-5 or 1-4 coming into this game in London. So you sit there, the Bears are 4-2 going into their bye week. Caleb Williams has had 2 remarkable performances individually. Also, by the way, Caleb Williams threw a pick in this game, so he had 4 touchdowns and 1 pick. This was the last interception that Caleb Williams threw until week 17. More on that later. But the team goes into the bye week. They are 4-2 and last place in the NFC North. Now, of course, we're at the end of the season. It makes sense. Lions 15-2, Vikings 14-3, Packers 11-6. Made sense that every other team in the division was at that level or better. But they go into the bye week. 4-2. You're on the road against Washington next. A team that you're going to be compared to a lot for the foreseeable future because of the quarterback. Number 1 overall, Caleb Williams. Number 2, Jaden Daniels, who has been lighting up the league over the last handful of weeks leading up to this game. And then both of these teams meet up in D.C., in Landover, Maryland. And it's a bit of a snoozer. Let's be real. Let's be honest with ourselves. This game should not have been close. It should have been an absolute rout. The Commanders outplayed the Bears for the entirety of this game, except for maybe 5 minutes. And they couldn't put it in the end zone. Put up 12 points, 4 field goals. Caleb Williams, after DeAndre Swift gets a fluky touchdown run down the sideline, which is kind of one of those plays that's like, dude, you're going to take that every day of the week. It's a play that doesn't really work a lot, but it's going to work in this scenario. It's the break you need. The Bears get on the board. And in the fourth quarter, after Caleb Williams puts up massive stinkers, which of course is disappointing, mainly because they come off the bye week and they come out looking incredibly poor, especially after the last 2 games of offensive production that the team had. Caleb Williams wakes up in the fourth quarter, leads them down on 2 touchdown drives, one of which does not score a touchdown because they hand off to a backup center who's playing fullback in his first football carry ever. Didn't have a carry in high school or in college. Just decided to give him the football. He fumbles. Washington recovers at the 1. Bears don't score. They go back and score on the following drive after a couple really nice plays from Caleb Williams to get him in position. And, of course, a pass interference call against Washington on a 4th down throw to Keenan Allen. They punch it in the end zone with about 30 seconds to go, and everyone's just like, oh, my God, this team's going to be 5-2 after playing 3 quarters of bad football. They're going to find a way to win this football game. And everyone knows what happens next. The Bears' defense falls apart. Matt Eberflus has his first of several late game meltdowns. They let up a 15-yard completion on the second to last play of the game, which sets up a Hail Mary attempt. They let Jaden Daniels run around for 12 seconds. He throws it up, and after Tyreek Stevenson's jawing with fans as the play is going on, has to beeline to the formation to try and make a play. He tips it into the hands of Noah Brown, who catches it. Game over, Commanders win, and the place goes crazy. It absolutely breaks the NFL world, and the Bears are sent into a tailspin that would last for the rest of the season. So in this situation, there's 2 ways to respond as a team. You rally the troops, you recognize the shortcomings of that game and of those moments at the end. You fix them, you rally the troops, say, hey, the season's not over. We're 4-3. Let's go out there and go and get a win next week. Or you could do what the 2024 Bears did and completely fall apart. The week leading up to this game was absolutely brutal. Ton of reports, ton of backstabbing, a ton of blaming. I could talk about that for a long time, but I made a full in-depth video on that. You can go ahead and watch that if you want more complete thoughts about that game and the week leading up to it, which is technically under this game. Their game in Arizona against the Cardinals. They fell flat, couldn't get anything going, couldn't find the end zone in this one, and they end up getting thoroughly demolished and letting up another late half scenario touchdown where Emari DeMercado, not even their top running back, their backup running back, takes it 57 yards to the house with under 30 seconds left in the first half on a play that was just designed to just run out the clock. And he takes it all the way. And then it was over from that point forward. Bears just stunk in this one. And that was the moment where I feel like a lot of people felt like the season had officially been over. It felt like the team had quit on this coaching staff. And that was further reinforced the next week at home against the New England Patriots. If there was any way, any gift of an easier game on the schedule to try and have a get-right game, this was the one. If they wanted to try and somehow salvage what they had this season, they had to go out and do their business and get things done against New England. And they put up probably their worst performance of the season. Just 3 lousy points. Caleb Williams sacked 9 times by the team who ended up having the least sacks in the league this season. The Patriots ranked dead last in total sacks. And it would have been so much worse, and they didn't even play this game. So, the Bears' offensive line, an absolute turnstile. Caleb Williams running into sacks left and right. And they put up an absolute stinker. And not only has Caleb Williams now been beat by pick number 2, he's now been beaten by pick number 3 in Drake May. Absolute worst case scenario, because now the Bears are 4-5. And we haven't hit the hard part of the schedule. Now we get to their first game against Green Bay. Shane Waldron is officially canned as offensive coordinator as they realize their mistake in hiring him. Can Thomas Brown, passing game coordinator, promoted to the offensive coordinator position. And his first game as the offensive coordinator is going to be against the Bears' biggest rival in the Green Bay Packers. Packers had come into this game winning 10 in a row against Chicago. The Bears had not won against Green Bay since 2018 when they clinched the NFC North. It feels like an absolute fantasy right now. And surprisingly, just even though like they have a bit of a slow start, they're still fighting. They can find some things down the field. They're making some plays. And they end up scoring a touchdown for the first time in over 2 full games. They have the lead at halftime. They're playing competitive with this Green Bay team. And they have the lead late. The defense surrenders a pretty bad drive that gives the Packers the lead in a very stereotypical Bears-Packers 2020's game and a 2020's Bears-Packers game finish where the Bears are leading late in a tight game and then the Packers go down and score a touchdown. What a surprise. But then something different happens for a change. You think about some of these quarterbacks, Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky specifically, in recent memory, so many chances to go beat the Packers late, and they have not been able to do so. What can Caleb Williams do in his first attempt? I'll tell you what he does. He leads them down the football field, and they go down and get into field goal range, large in part to a beautiful escape play on 3rd and 19, a dart to Rome Odunze to make it 4th and manageable, and on 4th and 3, a corner fade to Rome Odunze in one of the highlights of the season. One of the best throws of the year for Caleb Williams, and what most people would say would be the highlight of the season for Rome Odunze. Then they complete one or two more passes down the field, get in field goal range. Matt Eberflus decides to just let the clock run with 40 seconds instead of trying to use a timeout. I think he had 2 timeouts. Regardless, they don't try and run another play and then use the timeout for the field goal. 46 yards away, everyone knows what happens then. The kick gets blocked. The Packers win their 11th in a row against the Bears, and the season's officially over. The Bears are now 4-6, and they've got an absolute gauntlet ahead of them. And you're just deflated. Defends late game actions that you can easily go out and look and see that was the wrong move. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but even in the moment, you're like, well, why don't we running another play? You can tell it was a mistake. Then you get to the next game against Minnesota. And this is Caleb Williams' other best performance of the season. Depending on who you ask, this might be his best performance of the season. 300 yards, threw his first passing touchdown since week 6. Several highlight plays. And in a game that the Bears were projected to lose, they were losing by 11 points in the final minute. Caleb, with little to nothing to play for, drives the team down the field. They score a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion. And then they get the onside kick. Caleb Williams, all he needs is one play, a dart down the middle to DJ Moore. They spike it. Santos doesn't miss this time. He gets it off. It nearly got blocked. Oh, by the way, there was another kick blocked in this game. It nearly got blocked on the game-winning kick, on the game-tying kick. Goes to overtime. Bears can't do anything offensively. The Bears defense falls apart. They lose, and you sit there, you say, bah, humbug. But at least Caleb looked really good. And then you get their next game against Detroit on Thanksgiving, and they just look completely terrible all game long. Or, well, that first half. That first half was incredibly ugly. They look god-awful. They come out of the locker room, and they look competent. In a game that the team was, any person would have thought that this was going to be an absolute rout. The Bears claw their way back in it after an abysmal first half. Keenan Allen catches 2 touchdown passes, and then DJ Moore gets the 3rd for Caleb Williams in one half. At that point in the season, I think at that point in the season, no one had thrown for 2 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions. Maybe there was one quarterback who had thrown for 2 touchdowns at that point. But regardless, Caleb Williams threw for 3 in the second half, and he was leading the team down the field yet again to go and try and tie the game late. And then the meltdown happens yet again. On second down, Caleb Williams gives up a sack on a pretty much free rush. And instead of using a timeout, which Matty Eberflus had, they decided to just let it run, get the call in. I think they can get the call in. Caleb Williams then panics because guess what? He's a rookie. Realizes that there's little to no time left. Tries to change the play so that they can go for the end zone. They rush it, and it doesn't work. What a shocker. They lose and Matt Eberflus is officially canned after his third end-of-game meltdown in about 6 weeks. 3 games that the Bears could have tied or won, completely squandered by boneheaded coaching decisions. So now the team is 4-8, and it's a complete freefall. Thomas Brown promoted to interim head coach. The team lays an absolute stinker in San Francisco. Rome Odunze catches 2 touchdown passes, the first of which was beautiful. Beautiful toe tap in the corner of the end zone. And they get absolutely mollywopped by a Niners team that was reeling late in the season through injuries. They then go on the road to play Minnesota in yet another pretty forgettable game. They get beat pretty handily yet again, and they lose 30-12. Caleb Williams throws 1 touchdown pass to Keenan Allen. That's really much. Again, he turned the ball over once or twice in these last couple games, and the team's 4-10. The season's been over, and at this point, it's hard to stop the losing, especially when the Detroit Lions are the next team on the schedule, and probably the most okay game of the season if you're a Bears fan in terms of losing. Expected to lose, didn't get blown out by 30 points, but still got pretty beat in that category. But at least Caleb threw 2 touchdown passes, and I think he threw for another 300. I think he had another 300-yard game here, but had a couple plays, a couple splashes, and you're just like, well, that's all you can look forward to at this point of the season. A couple of injuries, the defense is starting to fall apart with the loss of Matt Eberflus, kind of showing that, well, he was not a good head coach at all. Terrible head coach. At least his defensive scheme wasn't the worst. He had just bad play calls most of the time. But you can see how his scheme was important as how poorly the defense played in that stretch. Then you get to the worst game of the season, not just for the Chicago Bears, but probably in the NFL on Thursday night. A 6-3 loss to the Seattle Seahawks, in which there were no touchdowns scored, no points in the second half, and a bunch of just frustrating football. Neither team can move the football. Caleb Williams throws a touchdown pass to Rome Odunze in what would have been his lone touchdown in Soldier Field this season, but it gets called back by penalty. The Bears also have another touchdown taken off the board after a fumble returned by Kyler Gordon goes the distance, though they ruled he was down by contact when he grabbed the ball. Bears obviously don't score, and it's yet again it shows how the offensive line just could not protect, and that was the exact strategy to beat the Chicago Bears team. Every third down they have, rush 7. They're not going to be able to block, and you can get to the quarterback. It was really easy game plan, and they rushed 8 on the 2 fourth downs the Bears had in their final drive. The Seahawks rushed 8. Caleb Williams made a really nice throw on the first one to get away and then throw it like 20 yards down the field to the first down line, which, oh, by the way, was like a 4th and 5. So he threw it like 10, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And then the second 4th down, Bull Rust has to just chuck it up, and it ends his interceptionless streak. His first interception since week 6. And it's the longest streak of passes without interception by a rookie quarterback of all time, and one of the longest in NFL history. Bears lose again. Seahawks would win to keep their playoff hopes alive, though they would be squashed the next day with the Rams' victory. Then you get to the final game of the season on the road in Green Bay, and you're just like, great, we got to go play the Packers to wrap up this god-awful campaign. They've lost 10 in a row, 11 in a row to the Packers. Can the misery just end? And then something different happens. Then something happens. Yet again, in another one of these games, when all you would wish is just the Bears to just lose. And just, at this point, just lose like 35-7, just get beat so I don't have to worry about getting my hopes up. But they don't do that, ever. It starts with a fake-out punt return touchdown by Josh Blackwell. Little homage to the Devin Hester fake-out where Johnny Knox returned it for a touchdown against those same Packers. What would have been like almost 15 years ago, though that got called back by a penalty. And so, then the Bears go up 14-3 in the second quarter after forcing a takeaway, a nice peanut punch from Jalen Johnson, and the Bears plunge it in for 6. They're leading 14-3. And you're just sitting there like, wow, this is great. But how are they going to find a way to break my heart this time? Christian Watson goes down with a non-contact ACL tear that's going to sideline him for a long time. Could potentially bleed in to 2025 here. Jordan Love bangs up his elbow the next play, and Matt LaFleur decides, hey, Josh Jacobs, after this drive's over, come to the sideline. You're not playing anymore. We're not risking it. We need you for the playoffs next week, because the Packers at this point had already clinched a playoff berth. And so, with Malik Willis starting and Emmanuel Wilson and for Green Bay, they make it a close game, obviously. Kevin Byard absolutely lights up Malik Willis in the third quarter. Caleb Williams gets his 20th touchdown pass to DJ Moore, and the Bears lead late, but DJ Moore then turns the ball over under 2 minutes to go. Packers kick a field goal. They go up by 1, and you're like, well, there it is. And everyone knew right when DJ Moore fumbled, like, yeah, there it is. That's game. That's it. But Matt LaFleur decided to take a book out of the Matt Eberflus playbook and have poor clock management late. Takes a timeout when he doesn't need to, ends up kicking a field goal, gives Caleb Williams 50 seconds to drive down the field. And you're like, all right, here we go again. And just like in Week 11, he gets the Bears down into field goal range. They go down, and they get in range. It's a 51-yarder for the win. Cairo Santos, redemption. And he hits it. From 51 yards out, he hits it. The Bears celebrate their first win against the Packers since 2018. They break a 10-game losing streak overall. It prevents the longest in-season losing streak in Bears history. And they go out a winner against their rival. Thomas Brown goes 1-4 as interim head coach, but his 1 wins against Green Bay, so that's not bad. And so, that's where we end up today. In 2 short weeks after this game, the Bears have hired Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, to bring new life into this Bears organization. They got their guy, and they're going, and he delivered an absolutely amazing press conference on Tuesday. An absolutely stellar press conference. Stellar. And so, the Bears, or was it Wednesday? It might have been Wednesday. And so this is where the Bears stand. As we speak right now, late January, NFL playoffs are still going on, and Jaden Daniels is playing the conference championship game this weekend. But the Bears have got their next head coach, and he's already made a bunch of moves. Who knows what we're going to see in the next couple days. But that's where we stand. So here's a full season recap, just in very simple terms, this season for the Chicago Bears. A record of 5-12, a bad season, a very bad season, a very disappointing season considering the talent level on this roster, and just overall some of the most back-breaking losses that this team has experienced in the last 15 years. The Hail Mary, the blocked field goal, the Thanksgiving debacle, and then they just... once you start losing in a sense like this, it's hard to rally the troops, especially with the schedule that they had at the end of the season. You see it, 10 straight losses, not great at all, but you see down at the bottom, one last little token to give Bears fans for the next 7 months, a win over the Packers, something they haven't experienced in 6 years. So, we'll see, and I said this at the beginning of the video, we'll see how the perception of this season becomes as the years progress. Because, of course, the team wouldn't have hired Ben Johnson if they didn't stink this season and fire Matt Eberflus. By the way, first head coach to be fired midseason by the Bears ever in the 105-year history of the Chicago Bears. And so, we'll see. If Ben Johnson leads this team to sustain success, we'll look back on this season as, look, this season was absolutely terrible. One of the most painful Bears seasons I've ever experienced. But dang, it led to us getting Ben Johnson and whatever the fruits of the labor of that move, whatever the domino effect becomes. Because this could be the move that sets the Bears up for success. Now, of course, it is the Bears, and they've missed on several head coaching hires in a row. But with how things have looked in the first couple days since he's been hired, compared to the first couple days of some of the last coaches that have been hired, it feels a little different. So we'll see. Obviously, you can get excited all you want about the offseason. But at the end of the day, Ben Johnson's here to win football games. Matt Eberflus did not. Obviously, you can see by this graphic right here. And so there you have it. A full recap of the Chicago Bears season from 2024. I know this is a long video. I know this is long. I know this is a lot. But thank you for sticking with it. Thank you for sticking by me. A little bit of a mini podcast here. I want to sit down and just talk about the season that was. Because there's a lot to talk about this season. It didn't feel like there were several games this year where they were kind of they just happened and you can move on. It really felt like there was one specific moment that led to this tailspin, and each progressive chapter tells a story in a sense. And one of the most disappointing Bears seasons of all time, especially with the expectations, with the talent, the new blood on the roster. It felt like maybe this could be the year they finally start to look like a competent offense. Obviously not the case. We'll see what happens next year. So once again, thank you so much if you stay around for the entirety of this video. Please hit the like button if you liked it. Please hit the subscribe button if you really liked it and want to continue to see new content from me when it comes out. Keep the conversation going in the comment section below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bear down.